From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas at Stunning Digital Marketing. In today's podcast, I sit down with Ritesh Kotak and we talk about Security 101. This is a topic I'm really passionate about and Ritesh is really knowledgeable about. So grab a drink, sit back, relax, and learn how to protect your online life. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. Today I'm here with Ritesh Kotak. How are you today, Ritesh?
I'm doing well.
It's a pleasure to have you. And I thought we'd start by could you give the listeners a bit of your background and how you ended up in the space that you're in now, please?
So I've always been uh, in love with tech and anything tech related. I remember my father came home with a Pentium 486 running Windows 3.1, and I remember seeing this magical box and taking it apart, but not being able to put it back together. And at that moment, my father could have very simply screamed at me, but instead, him and my mother were very encouraging and said, "That's okay. Do the best you can." I remember not being able to put it back together. They took it, got it fixed, came back home. I did it again. Now I could put 50% of it back together. Before I knew it, I was actually building my own computers and programming and trying to make video games and just having fun with it. I never thought it would actually be a career for me. I always thought I was going to be an accountant. I actually did a degree in business and thought I was going to be an accountant, and actually graduated with two offers: one from an accounting firm and one from a policing agency, actually. And I remember going home and telling my mother, and she hugged me and kissed me and said, "I'm so proud my son's going to be an accountant." And I think I've been disappointing her since. I actually ended up joining the police service, and as a I kind of deem myself as a from a public safety professional, working in tech related stuff, innovation related stuff, cybercrime. But then after 7 years, it was time to move on. So I went on a journey to go get educated. I lived in Europe. I lived in Asia. Did my MBA. Worked in big tech. And then I kind of told myself, where's the puck headed? To use a Gretzky analogy, and I found that it was on emerging tech and getting the regulations right. We talk about AI, we talk about cyber, we talk about privacy. So I decided to go to law school, and I'm currently finishing up law school, kind of specializing in tech law related issues. And that's been the journey. So it wasn't a very traditional path. It was very untraditional, but here I am today.
It's funny. Many of us have untraditional paths, and it's amazing. But I think it also gives you good life and business experience when you go through this type of a journey, and you don't go just from point A to point B, and that's really amazing. So one of the things I wanted to dive into, and I think it's probably been a little bit overblown, maybe not, is the Log4j server issue
Hmm.
that's been going on. Could you break it down just so people can understand it on a very grassroots, easy to understand level, please?
Sure, and you're right. This is something that is taken the world by storm. It's been a top trending story in tech circles and cyber security circles as well. Um, So the best way to simplify this is servers, databases, and other components are needed to run the popular sites that we visit. Um, but these servers are kind of like the best, maybe the brains of these operations. Now, with billions of users that leverage these different components of websites, there are issues that naturally will come up. I clicked on this and it didn't work, or what happened when I tried to download this this stuff from this website or run a search, and I'm not getting the right results. And there are systems that log all these types of occurrences behind the scenes on these servers. And the most popular logging system was called Log4j. And in Log4j, a 0-day vulnerability was discovered. So, what is a 0-day? It means that it was unknown, but it was in the wild and it was being exploited prior to its discovery. And this is very scary because when an input, any type of input, so you talk about the complexity of these hacks. Well, in this case, one of the things that made it really scary was the simplicity of how a hacker could essentially exploit the system. And it could be literally from any type of input. So think about forms, search bars, even chats. And just by putting a string of characters in, these would then go into the logging system. And if you're able to put a particular string of character, then it would essentially remote code would be executed of infecting the system, giving hackers access to the system, and taking over your data. So it made it really serious given the fact of the scalability and how many servers actually use Log4j, which is the most popular logging system, but also the simplicity of how an attack could happen.
Yeah, it's so true. And the and this one, from what I've read, there's a couple things. Microsoft last week reported a couple ransomware attacks attacked linked directly to Log4j that are out in the wild. So they've seen, I think it was two or three they've reported, and we've got numerous other vulnerabilities that have come out of this one. So I think honestly, people just need to be aware it's out there and get their servers, if they're in the server game, updated sooner than later. Correct?
That's correct, right? And I think the thing here is there are updates available, kind of to patch the vulnerability, but also for organizations. You don't you you got to do these audits. And the thing about cybersecurity is it can't be it's not a checkbox exercise. It's not something that you say you did and then you don't have to do it anymore because hey, I did it. It's continuous. It's cultural. It
Yeah.
needs to be built into the very fabric of the organization, because today it's this, tomorrow it could be something else.
Yeah, it's so true. Um, Before we jump into what we can do for a individual or a small business, one of the things I think a lot of people need to be aware of in the cybersecurity side is a term called social reengineering. And really, what that means is use people's social ways or people's ways of doing things to do a hack. So the hack isn't a true cyber hack, it's working your way around it. For example, I call up a company and I manage through a series of questions to figure out a password. Or I walk into an office, and even worse, the password's on a sticky note on the secretary's computer. And one of the best books I've ever read about that subject is a book called The Art of Deception. And that was written by Kevin Mitnick, and he's the hacker who has the claim to fame of bringing down the FBI's website years ago. What do you think about that? Many hacks are actually caused by people and not actually the technology. Do you have any thoughts on that one?
So it's getting even scarier, right? And I think with social engineering in particular, right, is kind of like this manipulation or
Yeah.
trickery to get somebody to give up information, to give up, sometimes pretty sensitive information as as well. Now, it's technology as a target, right? We clearly with the Log4j, we saw how tech could be exploited to gain access to individuals' information. But Also, individuals can be exploited as well. We got to remember the type of society that we're living in. We're living in a world where data is readily available on individuals, and it might be in places where you might not necessarily think that people are actually able to exploit it from, right? So your Facebook profile, for example, might have a lot of information. Just think about the security questions in some cases that you use. I find the worst security question that I ever come across is, what's your mother's maiden name?
Yeah,
It
I
is
would
so
agree.
easy to find out somebody's mother's maiden name. There's records. When you change your name, there's a record that gets created. If we just take a family, let's just look at it this way. We take a family. So you have a house, you have a car, and you have a spouse and potentially, let's say, children. Just then, the car in itself, if you purchase the car and you're having it leased, sorry, if you're having it financed, there's a lien on the vehicle. Well, that lien is actually searchable under the PPSA. Anyone can spend $8, and I think it's $8. I don't know if the price has been increased, and see if there's a lien on the vehicle. And what it will tell you, it'll tell you what type of car it is, the address to where it's registered. So there's information out there. You can also, there's the house probably has a title. The kids and the spouse might have social media accounts. Now you might have your stuff. You might not have a social media profile, and you say, "Well, Ritesh, I don't have what I call a digital footprint," but you have a digital shadow. And what information are other people putting up about you? And then remember, we hear about breaches and we hear about hacks all the time. That information is out there in cyberspace somewhere, and people can purchase that information. So when we start getting into a world where data privacy is important, protecting our identity is important, because the ramifications if we don't are so grave.
Yeah, it's so true, and people don't realize. I mean, it could be something as simple as being mentioned in an article and your name showing up. I mean, it's like it's far-reaching, and people don't realize that. So, on that note, what are the three or four really good things that people can do to protect themselves online individually?
So there's a couple things, right? So the first thing I would say, and we can speak from a technical standpoint, right, is what I call cyber hygiene. So that includes, and I know I'll probably sound like a broken record, but change your passwords frequently. Use strong passwords that include uppercase, lowercase, symbols, and numbers, and make sure that you enable multi-factor authentication, kind of those basic cyber hygiene things that you can do to minimize the potential of um, of becoming a victim of a cyber attack. That doesn't mean you're not going to, that you're going to be fully protected. I think it's a lot more complex than that. So that kind of brings us up into the other elements, and that is, think before you click. The amount of these phishing, or in some cases spear phishing, related attacks have increased significantly, especially because a lot of us are spending much more time online now. The whole work from home element, as well. And we've there was a rush to implement net new technology back in March 2020, and I don't blame organizations for this. The idea was, how do we keep the lights on? How do we have business continuity when we're living in a world of uncertainty? But at the same time, we didn't really equip individuals with the right cyber tools to protect them. And I think that is one thing that, as organizations, really need to take seriously, of how do you actually, cyber proof your employees and individuals as well. And then kind of like the third big aspect is, just know the type of data you're actually putting out there, because I kind of have two lines that I continuously recycle, and the first one is, there's no such thing as delete. delete just doesn't exist. Once something's out there in cyberspace, it's out there forever. And secondly, we all love free stuff, right? We love free apps, we love free tools, free plugins, we love free stuff. Um, but if you're not paying for the product in this day and age, then you are the product. And you got to ask yourself, what type of data is being collected on me? How is it being repurposed? Where is it being stored? Who has access to it? And these are some questions that you got to ask yourself before you arbitrarily give up information to individuals and organizations. And those three overarching things, um, I think will help individuals stay safe in the social cyber digital era.
Yeah, and thanks for mentioning that people are the product. There is no such thing as a free app, and that's what people need to realize. The cost of free is your data. So I'm really glad you brought that up. Excuse me. The Let's talk about 2FA or two-factor authentication for a minute. You mentioned it. There's three types. There's well, there's more than three types, but there's the big ones are SMS, which is text messaging, using an authenticator app, or using something like a third-party key, like a YubiKey or
Mhm.
something like that. What are your thoughts on those three, and which one should you use at all possible?
Yeah, and there's nothing stopping you. Now we talk about two factor. There's nothing stopping you from using multi-factor, right?
Yeah,
So using a combination of factors to get in as well. Clearly, the most popular one is SMS based, but there are issues with SMS based systems, right? We talk about SIM swapping, for example, where essentially your number gets cloned or is hijacked, and we've seen an increase in those types of attacks as well. The most common is definitely these authenticator apps, whether you're using Microsoft Authenticator, Google Authenticator. These types of apps have really shown to be ways of protecting individuals. There are physical tokens as well that you must insert. There's some cheap solutions out there, but usually the really good stuff is quite costly to purchase and to implement and to maintain. But that also brings us up to another point is no matter what type of multi-factor authentication you're using, enable notifications. Know when somebody's actually logging into your account. Is it is so I have notifications set up on my accounts. So if a transaction happens on with respect to my credit card, or there's a net new login um, with respect to my email on a new device, I get notified right away. And if it's not me, um, clearly what I'll do is I will go ahead and suspend access. I will change my passwords. I will look at the logs to see where that came in from, that login came in from. But you got to be more vigilant. But which one is the best? I think in the future we're kind of looking at things like authenticator apps and passwordless worlds. My favorite thing to actually click on a website in recent days has been forgot password. I can't, how often, just given the fact that we're always, changing up passwords. I know there's password keepers and stuff like that, but passwordless is the future, and that's going to involve authenticator apps, and even that is multi-factor, because not only do you need to put in the right password to get in, now you're using an app to authenticate in, which is also using the factor of Face ID or fingerprint or some sort of biometric to further authenticate you. So I think that's the future. That's what currently people are using. That's what should be enabled by default by vendors as well for their products. It shouldn't be something that you have an option to enable. It should be enabled by default, and it should be a an kind of a opt out instead of an opt in, saying, do you want to opt in to multi-factor authentication? No, you already opted in. Do you want to opt out of it? And no one should.
yeah. I actually read an interesting story I'll share about Face ID, and there was a case in the states where a unscrupulous ex of somebody managed to, shall we say, get her drunk and basically open her eyelids to unlock her iPhone using Face ID, if you can believe that. So I don't think the technology's totally there yet for Face ID, but I think it's getting there, and I think that's a really good option. Um, do you have any thoughts on password managers to help get people to that point? Are they a good idea? Are they bad ideas? Should you? Shouldn't you? What's your theory on that?
Again, I think we're kind of moving to a passwordless, kind of like a passwordless world. But there are, and just for anyone that um, is wondering what a password manager is, it's essentially an app or a program. Usually, there are some plugins that kind of plug right into the browser, that generate and manage your passwords for you. I'm torn on password managers. I personally don't use them. Um, but I can see how it could be of benefit. I have used them to generate strong passwords and stuff like that, but to actually store my passwords, I choose I try not to. But that's me personally.
That's an interesting viewpoint. Now, in terms of small businesses, and a lot of them are so busy dealing with their core business, they don't think about the security side. I certainly know from somebody who works in the WordPress security space, they certainly don't think about the website. What should they be doing at the bare minimum to protect their businesses in the digital world?
So there's a couple of things I recommend small businesses do, and this is definitely something that's really near and dear and close to me because my parents are small business owners. I grew up in a small business. My crib was in my parents' store, and I've tried to dedicate as much time to assisting small to mid-sized businesses on becoming, thinking about cyber and thinking about protecting individuals. I actually had an opportunity to testify as a witness at the House of Commons, and I clearly mentioned that we got to get this right. We can't say small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and if they get breached, not only is that an impact to our economy and to the competitiveness of Canada, but also these are individuals, and they got families, and I think this is really important. And my advice to them is, we know that the most common methods that hackers are using are phishing related, or credential stuffing, which is, if we just break it up, credentials are username and password, and stuffing is when you just start throwing usernames and passwords to multiple sites to gain access, and because people, they recycle usernames and passwords, and clearly one of the things I recommend is don't do that. So if there is a breach, people aren't getting access to your to other systems. But the best way to kind of summarize this is businesses are really good at protecting themselves in the physical world. Here's what I mean: when the fire alarm goes off. People know exactly what to do. They got fire safety protocols in place. They got fire extinguishers and smoke detectors. But when it comes to cyber alarms, um, they don't know what to do. They haven't invested in cybersecurity. They don't know who to call. They don't have, kind of like the 911 for cyber. They haven't thought these things through. They haven't done these drills. They don't have employees don't know what to do and who to contact. If the fire alarm goes off at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday and you're the only one in the office, for whatever reason you'd be in the office at that time, you still know what to do. But what would you do if it was a cyber alarm? So we practice fire drills, but we haven't really practiced cyber drills. So if we start thinking about it from that perspective, we start to think about incident response plans. We start to think about, proactive cyber measures instead of reactive cyber measures. We keep up with the updates. We use, for smaller organizations that can't afford cybersecurity professionals because they're expensive. you know, thinking about using some sort of managed service provider who, or you know, bringing in some you know, some consultants that can actually help them do audit their systems, help them secure their systems, and it doesn't have to be expensive. Uh, the cost of a breach will significantly outweigh the cost of being proactive and having backups and training your employees and knowing who to call when something happens, so you can have business continuity and restore your systems to get back up and running, and mitigate against future breaches. These are all things that small businesses are very good doing in the in the physical world, but got to get much better in the cyber world.
Yeah, it's so true. And one of the things you touched on was backups. And one of the biggest things I see with small businesses is they all take backups, every one of them. But many of them have never actually tried to restore that backup before it's needed. And I've seen many, many cases over the years where they say, "Oh, I got a backup, great." They throw the backup in, the backup doesn't work. And I think they have to be a little more proactive because a backup is only as good as the ability to restore.
That's absolutely it, right? And as we said, you know,
Yeah.
we practice fire drills, we got to practice cyber drills, and one of those things is the lights go off. What do you do? Who do you call? How do you get your systems back up and running? You got to, and you can't test this when no one's on, you know, no one's working on, you know, on a Saturday, you know, Saturday or Sunday at like 2 a.m. when only one or two people um, might be working, or there might be no one working. That's not the time to test this stuff. The time to test this stuff is during your busiest time, of operations, to see kind of where things fail, what needs to be improved. And even with the backups, right? You want to ensure that these backups are done in such a way that, um, if there is ransomware on the system, or there is, or something does, or file system does get corrupted, it doesn't corrupt the entire backup as well. And I think that is important to, know. So you have, you know, specific backups of essential data, but you should be doing system backups, right? So your operating system, your files, essential data, and then going on the assumption and doing that things are going to go wrong at some point, and doing a cyber drill during your busiest time, of the week, and seeing what happens, and then kind of regrouping with your staff, and going through it and saying, okay, let's go through this. What worked? What didn't work? What do we need to improve? Where are the gaps? And filling them.
Yeah. I know of a case recently, Ritesh, where a store owner got broken into. He was doing backups to a USB hard drive. We know where the USB hard drive was, right? Right next to the
Hmm.
computer in the store. So the problem with that is that doesn't protect yourself against a fire, a theft, or or any other damage to the facility. In this case, the thief took the hard drive in the computer and threw it against the floor in frustration. The hard drive was damaged, but fortunately not to the point of data recovery. The data recovery cost on the hard drive was over $5,000, not uncommon. And this all could have been avoided by, in my opinion, a couple $100 backup solution to even back up into the cloud and not keep everything in one spot.
Yeah. So cloud backups are, um, I think, you know, or any type of offsite backups are essential, right? Your data can't just be in the same physical location, um, where your where your systems are. You got to build in redundancies. You got to account for those factors that, you know, I would say, like, if there was a fire and everything burnt down, um, would you still have access to that data? And if the answer is no, then you're not doing your backups properly.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you. Moving forward, we're almost at the time of this record at the new year, and I don't think personally, the cyber attacks are going to get less in 2022. I think they're actually going to get worse. Um, what are some simple New Year's housekeeping things beyond everything we've talked about that you should do?
Well, I think we kind of discussed it, but just to reiterate, I think that cyber hygiene bit, I think
Mhm.
that's really important, and make sure that you're using different usernames and passwords for your different accounts.
Yep.
Enable that multi-factor authentication. Make the backups. Another tip is the fact that we're in this midst of, we're in the midst of a fifth wave right now, and more and more people are actually doing online shopping as well. And just be cognizant of the type of data that you're putting up. Ensure that the site that you're putting your data is secured. The best way to check for that is look for the padlock symbol in the browser, or the HTTPS. The S stands for secure, in the URL. So if you're go into a website, make sure it says HTTPS colon dash dash and then www dot whatever website it is. If the S isn't there, don't give your credit card information and your personal information on it, because it's not going to be secured. So I think kind of those small things. I think what we find is a lot of these high tech crimes are really low tech ways of getting victimizing people. So avoid just the best way to avoid it is, and to ensure that you're able to get up and running in the case if something does happen, is just the stuff that we discussed: the cyber hygiene, the backups, being cyber safe, thinking before you click, and doing those updates on your devices. I think I can't emphasize enough. If you look at your phone right now and you look at all your apps and there's updates there, those updates majority of the time aren't net new features on your app. It is security updates. So do those updates.
No, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Thanks very much for your time today. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you to ask you a question, is there a real good way?
Sure. Visit my website. I got a contact form there. It's riteshkotak.com.
Thank you very much, Ritesh. Very special thank you to Ritesh for joining me on this week's podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did having it with Ritesh. Thank you for listening to this edition of the SDM Show. The SDM Show is brought to you by Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing. For more information about Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing, go to stunningdigitalmarketing.info. From here, you can connect to us on social media, go to our website, and even go to the podcast to subscribe. This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much. Keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, make your business succeed.